This is the Auntie M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Auntie M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast. Good afternoon on the Auntie M Brain Tumours talk show. It is all about raising awareness for brain tumours. I have an interview with Dawn Hamill. Dawn had a brain tumour and then diagnosed with breast cancer. So she's going to tell us her story and how she then set up a blog. She's not actually here, so we're going to call on Skype. Thank goodness for Skype. Let's give her a call. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Claire.
Hello. Tell us your story, but also your blog. Mind the Gap A to Z.
In 2008, November the 17th, I woke up in the middle of the night in the middle of a grand mal seizure, which I've never had one before. I came round from it. My husband rushed me down to the hospital. They put me in the CT scanner and discovered that I got a big brain tumour the size of a tangerine, which had spread all across the top of my head like icing. They operated the next day and to remove as much of it as they could. And when they operated, I lost the use of my legs. So that was the big event, and that was the turning point in my life. I got the use of my right leg back and went home walking with crutches. But then 4 weeks later, I had to be readmitted because I'd developed a brain abscess as a result of the surgery. So I had more surgery. And after that, I lost the use of my legs and my left arm. And so fought hard to get the use of those back, but I've never regained the use of my left leg. My life changed from then on. The interesting thing is when the consultant came to see me to say they'd found the lesion on my brain after the scan, he started asking me questions and it became quite clear that I had symptoms. I'd had constant headaches. And when I got home after all the surgery was over, I discovered that I'd got paracetamol everywhere in the house. So I was obviously taking them very regularly without realising. I'd also that summer started tripping up and I just blamed it on my sandals. I thought it was my sandals. So those were symptoms, but I hadn't added them up.
When you found out that you had a tumour, what happened next?
They operated the next day. As I say, removed as much of the tumour as they could and diagnosed it as a meningioma, which had spread across my head. And I lost the use of my legs, but regained the use quite quickly of my right leg. But my left leg remained a problem.
What was the name of it?
Yeah, it was a parasaggital meningioma. What that actually means is it was a benign lump as I see it. So it was a growth from the meninges, which is the layer that protects the brain. But the sagittal sinus is the sinus that runs through the two lobes at the top of your brain. And so it had gone right across there. It had closed that sinus up. So I had to have that sinus removed.
And then you'd had surgery. Did they say they got it all out and then there was no problems afterwards? They were quite happy with it?
They said to me they got as much out as they could, but not every single cell, because with these kind of tumours, you can't guarantee with the site where it was, you can't guarantee you've got all the cells out. So it was classed as a subtotal resection. So there is always a chance that it will regrow at some stage. And obviously there is very little research into benign tumours. So we just don't know why it might regrow and why it might not.
When was that this happened? What year was it?
It was 2008.
So how would you say from where you were then until now, how do you see yourself differently from then?
My life completely changed on November the 18th, 2008.
You always remember the date and pretty much the time as well.
The day my life changed. But yeah, I worked really hard with my rehabilitation because I was absolutely determined I was going to get back on my feet. And I did. But as I say, I've never regained some of the use of my left leg. That I work with that and I make the most of what I have got and try not to focus on what I haven't got. But the second operation for the brain abscess left me with epilepsy, which we're finding very hard to control. So that's a problem I also live with. But again, try and incorporate it into my life.
What kind of seizures that you have now? Is it the same?
I've had 2 or 3 of what was used to be called the grand mal, but are now called tonic-clonic seizures, which are the seizures that most people think of when you think of epilepsy, where people lose consciousness and shake. But 90% of my seizures, I feel lucky actually that this is the case, are partial focal seizures. And they're quite strange in their manifestation. I didn't realize for a long time what they were. I start to feel sick. Then my head feels like it's full of cotton wool. Sometimes it feels like a train's gone shooting through my head, a silent train. And then I start to cry. And when I start to cry, I know it's over. And then the tears just shut themselves off immediately. It's really strange. And obviously, I'm a nurse, or was a nurse, I'm retired now, but I didn't recognize them as being seizures. And yeah, it's very strange, but I think it relates to the area of the brain that is affected and where the electrical activity arises in the brain, and that's what generates the symptoms.
I read about the first 7 or so hours operation, you had a rare infection.
Yes, that's right. 4 weeks after I was discharged after 4 weeks in the hospital, learning to walk again, and came home just before Christmas. And then as soon as I got home, I felt something wasn't right, because my walking started to get worse and worse. And to cut a long story short, within 10 days, I was admitted back to hospital with a brain abscess. So I had to go back to theatre the next day to have that cleared out. And they had to remove a big section of my skull, which I could then call my sunroof, to make sure the infection was completely cleared.
Did you have a plate put in?
That's right. So once I'd come home, I came home with the hole in my head, as I call it, my sunroof, with the scalp sewn across. So I had to wear a helmet for 9 months in case I fell. But the irony of it all is I refused to wear it in the house. And the only time I fell was in the house. But anyway, 9 months later, I had a plate put back into my head. So yeah, I've got a titanium top of my head now. Yeah.
What is it like to have that? How does it feel?
Yeah, my head feels completely different since the brain tumor and surgery. If I get tired or I get unwell, for example, I can feel the top of my head pulling. In normal, day by day, nobody would know. My hair's completely grown back, which I'm really lucky about. I appreciate that. Yeah, and there's no evidence outwardly that there's a plate in there. But as I say, when I get tired, it just pulls, the skin pulls, yeah.
And you've now had to deal with that, but then you were also diagnosed later on with breast cancer.
Yes, that's right. In 2014, it was my 50th birthday, and I went for my at 50th birthday mammogram, only to discover that I'd got breast cancer, which came as a massive shock. And I think the diagnosis of the breast cancer, in a way, hit me harder than the brain tumor, which a lot of people find unbelievable. But I think the brain tumor happened so suddenly, and it was all dealt with, and the surgery happened. And then I put all of my energy and concentration into getting my life back and getting back on my feet. Whereas the breast cancer, I'd already lost so much in my life, and I didn't want to lose any more of me. So that was a really big, big shock. Yeah.
How are you now health-wise?
I'm very well, actually. My breast cancer had spread to my lymph nodes. And so I had chemotherapy and radiotherapy and surgery. But luckily, I didn't have to have a mastectomy. I had a wonderful breast surgeon who managed to remove it all and reshape it, which I'm very pleased about, because that was the horrifying thing for me, was the fact that I might lose some more of me and of my life. Treatment all finished at the end of 2014.
I can't even imagine. I think for me personally, I think when I came out of hospital, I thought, that's it. I've gone through the worst thing ever. Nothing will ever happen again. This got to be as bad as it gets.
You're absolutely right. When I was diagnosed with the breast cancer, just utter shock, because without even realizing it, I had convinced myself that, as you've just rightly said, a brain tumor is probably the worst thing you can have. And I've now got a golden ticket to get no other illness. Hey ho, breast cancer came along. So I was ever so angry, but the way I look at it is it's just pure biology, and my body seems to be able to grow things. So my standing joke is my body's a greenhouse and it grows things, but that's just the way, isn't it? Having one illness doesn't exclude you from getting other illnesses. That's life.
So it's like maintenance. We should always look after our bodies, like smear tests or any kind of test that
That's
they ask
right.
you. It is really important to still do it.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Confident.
absolutely right. And the interesting thing is, after my brain tumor, there wasn't much support with people with benign brain tumors. That was my experience anyway. No psychological support whatsoever or any advice. And so it almost took the breast cancer, where support is all around you. There was help and psychological support and cancer centres I could go to learn that actually it is all about how you look after yourself. I've always eaten pretty well, but I'd never realised that eating a certain way can have an impact on whether or not your breast cancer or any cancers come back. So I eat very differently now, a very healthy Mediterranean diet, but also the impact of mindfulness and meditation and reducing the amount of stress in your life. And again, I had absolutely no idea that could have an impact on the growth of or cancers and general health. Yeah. So I do live my life very differently now.
Yeah. And then, so the blog, when you set it up with the Mind the Gap, was this before you were diagnosed with breast cancer, or was this after both, where you wanted to make this new blog to share all that information that you've learned?
It was between the two. When I strived after the brain tumor to go back to work, I was a nurse consultant in a national role, and that job defined me. I loved my work, nurse for 30 years. And so I did try and go back, but I worked in Wales and it took me 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back because I couldn't drive anymore. And I did it for 10 months, but it nearly killed me. Dawn, just please retire. So I did. And that was when my life sort of seemed to fall apart because losing my job, as well as my ability to walk properly, as well as having epilepsy, it just all became too much. What I started doing was writing in a notebook and just scribbling down how I was feeling. Then I decided maybe I need to share this because I can't be the only one feeling like this. And that's when I set the blog up.
You called it Mind the Gap A to Z. What made you pick that exact?
Yes.
Because everyone, when they do blogs, there's a different reason for why everyone picks the names. And it makes sense in terms of the gap, but it can mean different things to you.
Yeah. Well, it was multifaceted, really. You're absolutely right. Mind the Gap was about the hole in my head. And also, Mind the Gap was about me. When I first returned to work, I had to get the train, and I absolutely hated it when the train pulled up at the station because to step off the train was a real challenge and still is for me. And so as soon as the guy on the train driver would say, "Mind the Gap," my heart would just sink because I knew inevitably I'd have to ask for help to get off the train. And so that was the main reason. And also that the brain tumor had left such a huge gap in my life, taken a lot away from me.
I've learned about blogs is they're right for people at different times in their life, at different stages. So this is not only that you want to share this, but it is your journey. So it's at different stages for you. So you don't want to do it all the time. But when you do, it's really valid what you're writing.
I include links to other organisations that I've found incredibly helpful because after my brain tumour, when I came out and was at home, it was only 2 years afterwards that I discovered there were charities.
I know.
Mainly,
Yeah.
obviously, because I hadn't done any searching because I was too busy trying to get back on my feet. And brain tumour support, which was hammer out in those days, was a phenomenal help to me.
Did you find brain tumor support groups, or did you then go afterwards, go and find support groups for the breast cancer? Or were you, because you said it was harder for you with the brain tumor, did you find that? Which one, did you go to both, or did you go to any of the ones for the breast cancer?
That's a very interesting question. I went to a centre called the Penny Brawn Cancer Centre, which is a centre that's not far from where I live, which is an amazing centre. They do all sorts of holistic therapies. And I was really happy to be able to go there. And I laughed when I went because I said to the ladies there, I feel like I've got my breast cancer's giving me the golden ticket because I didn't feel I could go there with my benign brain tumour. But actually, they've said, had I known about it, I could definitely have gone there with my brain tumour too. So yeah, I used their services for a while, but actually, I've never felt the need to go to a support group for my breast cancer because I feel like it was an episode in my life. It's over, it's done with. I have annual scans now, at mammogram scans, and I live in the vein that I don't think it will come back.
Yeah.
And so I don't try and forget it because obviously it will always be there, but I don't feel the need to get any support at the moment. So
Do you go and have yearly scans as well for the brain tumors now, for the brain tumor, or do you not need to have? Because I know eventually people don't have to. If they feel they've continuously had clear scans from 5, 6 years down the line, they tend to say you don't really need one now unless you want one. They tend to say if you feel you need something, then come back. But otherwise, they do eventually say we don't need to do this every year or every 2. So do you still go back?
I do, yes. I think the year of my breast cancer would have been the year where the neurosurgeon would have said, we'll start doing it every 2 or 3 years. But because I'd had the breast cancer, he recognised without me having to say anything, it wasn't the right time to stop doing the brain scans because my anxiety was running so high. And so I still had one this year, and I'm sure I'll have one next year, and then we'll see.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me, Claire.
This is the Auntie M Brain Tumors Talk Show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Auntie M Brain Tumors Talk Show on podcast.